Hey, this is Laura Templeton with 30 Second Success and the author of Compassionate Leadership. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend, Scott Ferguson. Be sure to listen in and level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson. I have a 3.0, my first 3.0 interview with my awesome sauce friend, colleague, Laura Templeton, who authored a book, Compassionate Leadership. And I love her take on leadership from more of a kind of a transparency level, more of a communication level, more of like being kind of on the same level as leaders and the people that work for them, not so much from an ego point of view, but like becoming together for mission critical things and having open door policies and being able to communicate within a company. Leaders out there that might be struggling, you need to listen to this, or if you know of a leader that is struggling, please share it with them. If you want to, like it as well, because sponsors and affiliates absolutely love that. But without further ado, here's my 3.0 interview with my good friend and author of Compassionate Leadership, Laura Templeton. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I'm feeling a little bit like Saturday Night Live, a little SNL about all those returning guests that they always have. Like, this is my number one third-time guest, my good friend Laura Templeton, who rocked out a book, which I was blessed to write a blurb for her. She reached out, and I couldn't wait to actually write it. But she's the author of many books, which if you go back to episodes 308 and 420, we've talked about her AI book and also her 30 Second Success books. But this book, it really hit hard with Compassionate Leadership, and who she is the author of. She's going to join us here and explore the powerful strategies for business owners and professionals to lead with empathy and impact. Again, she's the founder of 30 Second Success. Laura brings 25 years of experience in marketing, specializing in authentic brand communication that connects deeply with clients. Through her books, workshops, and speaking engagements, she empowers leaders to communicate with clarity, confidence, and compassion, inspiring growth and success at every level of their life. And Laura, thank you so much. Welcome back. And please, again, introduce yourself to the Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. But this time, what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, my favorite ice cream flavor has to be mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip. No, I
Yep.
tried to catch you on this because this was part of our lightning round question before, and you matched it. So usually I ask color or something we don't know about you, but I figured I would see if you stayed with the mint chocolate chip, which you did. You're consistent. I love it. So, I dug into this book and I literally read it because I love business parables. But I kind of love that you broke it up into the core principles and then the 25 principles of compassionate leadership, right? And I love that you kind of broke it up and made it a learning experience along with a story, right? So I have to ask you first and foremost with Rebecca, is she you?
I think in some ways, yes. I think
Okay.
there's that little bit of you always bring yourself to the story when you are creating a character, a fictional character.
Sure.
So I would definitely say there's a lot of my own past experience, especially in that corporate
I
environment
was gonna say,
that comes to the page.
right.
Yes.
It's funny because it's like she's this young lady that's driven, but like she also you could just feel the wisdom coming out of her. So I was just like it was like a younger Laura that's really kind of coming up through the ranks. So in the book, you talk a lot about you challenge kind of the traditional leadership models that are out there with that, right? And so what kind of inspired you to write this? And I kind of know because I know you, but I want you to share with the squad about like with how you've really leaned into evolving leadership through the compassionate side.
I think part of it is growing up, I was always challenged to step into a leadership role. There's so many different opportunities as a kid growing up, our schools and things like that that really inspired leadership, inspired team, the team concept of helping one another and loving one another. I feel like I grew up in a different age.
Sure.
I don't know.
Right, we did.
I
We
might be
did.
aging myself. I graduated in 1982. But I think when I went into corporate right out of college, I worked for RCA. And in my experience at RCA, there was an amazing camaraderie that really took place there. And they were constantly looking for improving giving you guidelines on how you could step into a leadership role and how you could improve your station. Your employee review was really about, here are the areas where you're excelling, here are some areas where we could see improvement, and
Mm,
here's what we can do to help you improve in those areas. And they took the role of helping you improve, right? They were
wow.
always looking to forward their employees in that. And what I've seen over time, my personal experience of observing other friends who are still in corporate, and my husband who's in corporate, and folks that I know that are in corporate, that kind of changed over time. It's almost like employers are afraid to tell people how to improve,
Mm,
or they're looking at employees from the perspective of, when somebody's really, I don't know if you've ever experienced this or if you ever hear people talk about this, is they're really good at their job. You don't want to move them into a leadership role because then they can't backfill them with somebody with the same expertise.
right,
So you start to see some people who get pigeonholed it because they're so good at their job.
right.
And so I've witnessed that. Well, I've had several clients that have expressed that struggle. And sometimes it's the choice of, do I stay or do I go? And
Okay,
which affects the corporation as a whole. It affects the
right.
company as a whole when you lose a good employee because they're not able to move up or to move into a bigger role or have more of an impact. And that's what people want. They want to feel challenged. They want to feel
Yes.
like there's a place for them to go.
Right. And
And
I love that you
yeah.
said pigeonholed and you use a little verbiage from The Clash, which is our generation too. Should I stay or should I go? Right. With that. And so what I'm kind of seeing is like in the book, I know that you brought up a lot about empowering employees to become kind of like, for lack of a better term, maybe a brand ambassador, right? Of them. Because again, like you said, like I have came up and through this thing called the military, right? And so when you were taught the new role, it fit the mold, which you kind of have to in the military because we protect this great country, right? But as you go in, these leaders now, including myself, that not look down, but I'm send the elevator down to my employees. I want to like have them be really kind of like their own entrepreneur within my company, right? To come and challenge me even because I want to be challenged. I mean, the ego, I try not to allow in. I believe the ego means edging God out. It's like I got to stay humble. And that's something my coach reminds me of, believe me, on that. So what is your kind of like advice do you have for leaders that struggle with maybe maintaining boundaries while fostering new kind of like deep connections with their employees?
I think there's always a sense of, it's interesting that you went in that direction with the question regarding that, so the impact that we want to make, and being able to maintain boundaries. And sometimes that's one of the things that leaders really struggle with. Like, if I become too friendly with my employees, then they're going to take advantage of me. So how do you maintain that level of, I'm still your boss, I'm still your leader, and yeah, we can have a really great relationship.
Right,
You have to be able to set, okay, here are my expectations. This is what I need from you. And if somebody doesn't meet those expectations, don't be a pushover, right?
right,
Like, hey, call them out on it. Be willing to have the hard conversation with your employee. Like, hey, I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing this for the good of the whole team, right? This is not it. When you have leaders who are willing to have the hard conversation, and yet they still elevate people or level them up. Right? We'll talk
right.
about leveling
Give
up.
me love, give me some
And
love.
when you level people up by encouraging them and recognizing their ability to perform and the things that they're accomplishing within the organization, and not just one-on-one, right? You want to make sure that you recognize them within the organization, that you're just giving them some love, right?
Praise them in public,
And but
reprimand them in private,
praise them
right?
in
Right,
power.
right, right, right,
Exactly. Exactly.
right,
And that's the biggest thing, is having those hard conversations is part of the job. It
okay,
really is. And whether you have it one on one, or if it's an issue your whole team is struggling with, you have it with the team behind closed doors, not in front of upper level management,
right. I love
right?
that. I love it. Which leads us to kind of I found a lot of Kaizen in your book, a lot of continuous improvement, right? That we're looking forward to. It seemed like that was a major principle. Can we agree with that? Like continuous improvement. So how can like the leaders of the companies encourage, I guess, bravery for like innovation, adaptability without kind of overwhelming them at the same time? Like how do you feel that leaders really should kind of like not push that responsibility, but encourage that responsibility to create within the company, be their own entrepreneur within the company?
That's one of the things that I love encouraging within organizations. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with professionals who struggle to toot their own horn per se, right?
Hmm.
Like when they're asked, a lot of times I have employees that tell me when I've been asked, what am I working on, or how are things going? And they struggle to actually be able to communicate effectively what it is that they're working on and how it's affecting the company and what the results are. And taking that extra step of saying, "Hey, here's something that I'm excited about. Here's something I'm proud of. I took the leadership role on this particular project. This is the results. Yeah, we didn't have the results that we expected, but at least we discovered what we shouldn't do next time." Even in that respect, right? Because what I found when I am networking, especially there's an organization in Philly that I love to network with. It's called power.org. It's a women's organization for professional women. And when I would network with a lot of professionals, I would ask them, so tell me a little bit about you. What are you working on? And they would immediately go into praising someone else on their team instead of
Hmm.
themselves.
Right.
They wouldn't tell me about themselves. They would tell me about their team members. I'm
Okay.
like, wait, tell me, I want to hear about you. And part of it is they've sometimes we overdo it on the team mentality. There's got to be a balance, right?
Sure.
We've still got to elevate the team, but also elevate the individuals within the team. And when we
Okay.
can elevate the individuals within the team, then they feel empowered to step into taking more of a leadership role for themselves as well as the team as a whole. Right?
Okay.
They feel like they can contribute more.
I got confused there with you said elevate people within the team. Is that what you said? Or because it seemed like again, I thought you had said kind of the same thing, but I see that where I'm going with this question, but like what is like if somebody is you want them to really kind of speak out about themselves and their team,
Mhm.
correct? Okay. And how would you go about having like if you were coaching, which I know you do coach people on this, but how would you go about coaching them to being okay and comfortable within their own skin? Like you mentioned transparency a lot in the book as well, but to be able to come out and like for lack of better terms, throw some shine on themselves as well as their team. Like how would you want them to encourage them to do that?
And I think that's the biggest thing, even as leaders within the corporation, is making sure that you're asking them very intentional questions, right? And I encourage people to be very intentional to know their worth, right? That one of the biggest things that I see people struggling with, they don't see their contribution as being worthy. And we have to start elevating one another as being worthy of that we bring value to the work that we're doing. So helping people within the team, individuals within the organization to see what value they bring to the other everyday process and not allowing them to feel beat down when they don't accomplish what they set out to do.
Ooh, I love that. But when if it doesn't, okay, like so I'm kind of putting your leader here in kind of a conundrum. So if the leader is expecting something to get done, it doesn't get done, right? How should the leader kind of address that to both ways, to the person below them and also the people that they answer to? How do you recommend that they address that?
Right. That's a really tough question. And that is a tough situation for leaders to be in. I think there's one of the things that we need to think about is when is it appropriate to give grace, understand why it didn't get done, and whether or not it's a valid reason why it didn't get done, as opposed to just being an excuse.
Love
And I
it.
think sometimes you need to really understand your employees to recognize the difference.
Gotcha.
Right.
So really
And I
know.
think we also need to empower our employees to say, to put their hand up when something's validly keeping them from
Thank
accomplishing
you. Thank you.
their signed work.
Within a professional time frame as well, too. So
Correct.
if you're like 3 weeks out, we can probably do something about this. Like squad, I'll tell you right now, and Miss Rhonda, I am so sorry. I messed up this morning. My friend Laura caught it, and here it is, a best-selling author that I am going out and messing up her name on a on a thing. And now, understandably, somebody that was supposed to have handled it, but the buck stops with me, right? And so with that, and fortunately, I don't have anyone to answer to except for Miss Rhonda, right? So, but if the buck stops with me, how much responsibility do I take up the ladder? Do I say, what, Jim should have did this, but it's on me? Like, what is your feeling about that within a corporate? Because again, you forgot more about corporate life than I'll ever know, probably. But like, how do you feel that it should be addressed?
Oh, absolutely. Ownership at a leadership level is very important because as a leader, we should be in communication with our team members on a daily basis. How are things going? What's your progress? Is there something you need my help with? Is there something I could take off your plate so that you can focus on the most important task that needs to get done? These are questions that are not being asked, right?
Right,
Leaders are literally handing over the reins and saying, here, you need to get this project done. Let me know when it's done.
right. Yeah,
And that's not leadership.
yeah, that thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, some people might not agree with this man's standards, but Elon Musk, he looks for 52 problems a year, right? And he gets involved only in those 52 problems that are critical, one problem a week, right? When he was running the Tesla and SpaceX and stuff like that. And he would actually get in there with the employees and figure this out. But it had to be a problem that was the trajectory was going another way. But as middle management or the corporate leaders, that problem is your biggest problem because that's what you have to report to, right? So it's like, what do you feel about the leader digging into a project to make sure it gets done completely without making the employee feel like they're being scrutinized or like they can't do it? Like, what do you feel about that? Like almost micromanaging.
Now, I don't necessarily know if I think micromanaging has gotten a bad rap, to be honest with you. I think there are ways, I mean, we don't have to be looking over people's shoulders, but let's lay out a game plan.
Okay.
Right. I love talking. Let's talk about what it's going to take to accomplish this particular goal, complete this particular project and kind of timeline it.
Right,
And and then look at it in retrospect to all the other things that we are working on at the same time
right,
simultaneously. So where is it going to fit in? So it is a time management issue when it comes to the micromanaging of pieces. If you've got someone you feel you need to micromanage, then there's a bigger issue.
okay,
If that person is not completing their work, if they're not coming to you when they are having a problem, then there's a bigger issue. You need to have a deeper conversation with them and say, look, we need to talk about your ability to manage your time. Do you need help? Do you need to help? How about we sit down and we look at your calendar and figure out where things need to fit in? And if you're not able to accomplish everything in that time frame, then we need to get you help.
right. And
But
I
see, a lot of times employees just think it's all on them and they need to
right,
do it and they shouldn't ask for help because then they're gonna be judged that they are not adequate in doing their job.
right,
When in reality, sometimes the job's too big and it
right.
takes more than one person.
Right. And that leads kind of compassionate leadership from the leader to understand, okay, they've bitten off a lot. They come to me, they're honest, they're transparent, right? What I do see in some companies is they make the mistakes within that communication. Like how can they really improve that communication? Like almost role play with me how they can within leaders or even like your corporate management, which they have to answer to somebody, but they have to also make sure that it brings down. Like, how can a conversation like that go? if I was to come to you and say, Laura, like I'm kind of running behind, but I come to you within a reasonable time frame, like how should that? Because one, you talk a lot about transparent communication in this in the book, right? So how should that kind of conversation go? I mean, Rebecca did have that conversation, but again, like how should it go? Do you feel?
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is number one, you want to be able to have an open door policy with your employees that they can come to you and and kind of set guidelines with them. Here are the things that you can bring to my door at any specific time. You're struggling with this or you need answers on this. You're having trouble getting maybe you're having trouble getting information from another team, another group, right?
Right.
You're waiting on outside sources to give you what you need.
Right.
That can delay projects. You need to come to me if it's a late a day, whatever your guidelines are, you need to set them up from the beginning and make sure that you are reiterating them on a regular basis with your team. Say, hey, don't forget, you need me. My door's open. Here's what you want to bring to me. If this is an issue, make sure that you come to me. And if you see those challenges consistently occurring, then take it to upper level management and say, look, we're doing our best to get these things done, but we're bumping up a problem where we're not getting the information we need from this team or this team or this team. Can you step in and help us with this?
I love
That's a
it.
prime example that I have seen time and time again where teams falter because they're waiting for information from other groups. That's one of the other conversations we could have very deeply is
Yeah.
how divisive it has become. You've got like we refer to them as little fiefdoms, right? Everybody's protecting their information in their
Right.
group and they don't want anybody else getting into their group and getting information or stepping ahead in line and like but teams aren't talking to one another anymore. And when
Yeah.
I worked at NatWest Bank in New Jersey, and one of the things that I had to coordinate teams. It was construction project management. You can't imagine how many different teams I had to be in touch with every single day to make sure a building got built.
Mm.
Right. If you're in
Right.
construction, you know how to get a building built. And if one person's late on delivering, it's the domino effect on your timeline.
I love it. And
And it's
squad.
and it's out of control. And it happens in corporate
Right.
when we're not talking when there's too many barriers between the different groups within an organization.
Yeah, I love that. And squad, one thing that like Laura's kind of putting out there, she's not saying, "Oh, we're out of staplers or we're out of this." This is actually key to the project, okay? And with my team, I'm blessed that they come to me with an agenda of what we're going to talk about within a half hour of our verbal meeting or in-person meeting. So, what do you think about my practice with
Yes.
that? I do ask to say it's a small little agenda. It's not like broke down. It's like subject line. And this is how my mentor taught me. And he wasn't a nice mentor that taught me in business. He's like, come to me. One thing that I would also encourage people is make sure when you come to your leader, come with recommendations, right? Come with what you feel is right. Now, the leader might shut it down, but at least you're showing that you're involved, you're trying, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Bringing the ideas to the table, a potential solution and getting a leader's blessing on it is a great way to actually help expedite the things that need to be done.
Love it. And with all the technology now, it's like teams can interact with other teams. Say like you have this fastener and you have this door and this project can't get done without the fastener and the door. There can be timelines. I know I'm blessed to coach a company that uses that Monday thing and like they're all within each other, which I absolutely love that because they know where they're at. They're not stepping on toes, but they are challenged for timelines. If what I mean, I'm not there to coach on leadership. I'm more there to coach on mindset for them, to like keep them involved, keep them excited about the new projects that are coming out. And leading to that, this kind of compassionate leadership is kind of lonely, especially in this day and age. And like I know people like yourself and me to even a certain extent are trying to kind of switch that over into more of a compassionate leadership. So, what advice do you have? Maybe for leaders that are like kind of struggling with fostering the deeper connections while still staying a leader.
So, I think you need to find your tribe. right? You need to find people who are like-minded to you. They're out there, right? There are
Mhm.
other people within the organization, outside of the organization. Like I mentioned, one of the greatest organizations that I ever met, because they want to foster that relationship and those connections within corporate, is power.org out of Philadelphia. Now, I wish it was a national organization, but it's not.
Mm.
Right. And I'm excited for when it does happen, because and Elevate is another women's organization that is
Heard
really
it.
great.
Yeah. Mhm.
Elevate Network, and they really foster those connections. Again, it's about finding your tribe. And I really believe that when you have other people who are like-minded to you and you can bounce ideas off of them or tell them what you're struggling with, whether it's with your team, even if they just said, look, you need to take this to management, it's like they're reaffirming what you're
Right.
feeling, right?
Right.
Having someone to bounce ideas, or even an accountability partner. Those are huge. I mean, we
Strong.
in small business, in entrepreneurship, that's one of the biggest things that we coach people to do, is find an accountability partner, somebody who
Yes.
thinks the way you think, who has the same vision they're moving in the same direction,
Right.
and that you can go to for support. Because let's face it, sometimes people in your family have no clue what you're talking about,
They
right?
don't.
They haven't experienced what you've experienced. They don't understand what you're trying to build. And it's a different mindset, right? I have a really good friend whose dad was in corporate for years. He was an executive, and he gives her amazing advice. So she's very blessed to have that.
Ooh, lucky
But
girl.
find someone who can do that
Yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I
And
think it's very, very powerful.
I love that you're kind of like get your asking gear, right? Like ask
Yeah.
for that help, right? That again, ego like stops a lot of people, especially they're afraid, oh my gosh, if I ask this, oh my gosh, they're gonna think less of me, which honestly, it's like I there are dumb questions out there, don't get me wrong, but it's like just again, squad, come to them with some kind of outline with what you're asking for so they can be prepared to really help you with that, the situation. So as we kind of like tune things down here for the listeners out, hold on, I got to get into this one because you wrote an awesome book, Stand in Your Brand, right? And it's about the AI and stuff. So I went into AI, okay, and plugged your book in there, okay, and I came up with one question. Okay, the rest of these questions are mine, but like the one question I'm going to read it as per. Well, I named my Chat GPT Philo because that was my call sign in the military. And so Philo said, in the digital age, technology and AI play an increasing role in leadership and branding. How do you recommend leaders balance technological advancements with a human touch?
Mm, great question, AI. I appreciate that one. I
Figured
and
you
I get,
would.
but I honestly get that a lot, right?
Okay.
How do you balance the use of technology without losing the human touch? And it is a big question. One of the things that I encourage people all the time is to remember your humanness, right? AI can only respond to the questions you're asking it.
Yeah. Yes.
So if you're very intentional about your questions, if you're very intentional about how you phrase them, if you spend time, and this is one of the things that I teach people, actually have a workshop on it, is how to program ChatGPT so it sounds like you with your custom instructions,
Thank
right?
you.
I'm pretty sure I told you about custom instructions, didn't I?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very much so. And by the way, Miss Templeton, Philo is kind of offended that you didn't call him by his name. You called him by Chat GPT. So I'm just saying,
Sorry.
like
Sorry, Philo,
if
because
I
my ChatGPT is named Chaz. So there's that.
it's funny
Um,
now, I've got it using a lot of your advice, okay? To the point of like, I want you to tell Laura what I do. And he will come out and say a mindset, gap coach, like everything about me that they remember. It's such a strong your book is by the squad. Pick up that book as well. I'll throw that in the show notes. It's phenomenal, right? Because I actually have like a relationship with it as it evolves. I've noticed that it's wrong more, right? Meaning like it's not like you're just going into Google and pulling facts. I'm saying that in air quotes if you're not watching Squad. It's like it's wrong more. So you actually kind of have an interaction with people. I'll be like, dude, this is wrong, Philo. This is not right. He goes, oh my gosh, you're right. That's right. And then they actually work through to fix it, which is no different to me than really fixing something within a company and asking the powerful question to work through it. Does that make sense with what you're kind of bringing out with AI?
Does. It really
Yeah.
does. But again, it comes down to having really great conversations, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is teaching people how to converse with AI is one of the most powerful things you can do is it's think of it as having a conversation with someone that you're standing in front of that you've met for the first time. If
Mm-hmm.
you ask them a very leading question, they're going to respond different than if you just said, "So, how are you?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Oh my gosh, how are you? Tell me a little bit more about your business. What do you love about it? Where do you see it going in 5 years?" Now it's a different conversation.
Right.
You can do the same thing when you're working with Philo.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
He says thanks.
When you're working with Philo, you can do the same thing.
Thank you.
And when you get really granular in your questions, your responses are going to be way more accurate. Now, and
Yes.
that's one of the things that I teach my corporate clients. Spend time playing with AI, right?
Yeah.
AI can be one of your best assets for your team.
Right.
If you and your team are stuck on something in a project,
Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh,
Yes.
brainstorm it with AI. See what kind of different responses you get versus three other people on your team. Bring them all together and then kind of like flesh it
Boom.
out from there.
Powerful question, like right there.
Well,
I'm like, and everything squad that I talk about is questions, right? Like, if you're driving down the road and you need to make a left, your brain fires off a low level question to should I turn on my blinker? Like everything is a question. The more powerful the question, the more powerful the results you'll get in your life. That's why my clients, because our brains are programmed to problem solve, we don't do affirmations. We form it in the form of a question. How is it that I am 230 pounds, healthy, and ready to rock every day? So that goes in the subconscious and it starts working its way out. And it's kind of the same with AI. If you start asking itself those questions, it's going to start working its way out, especially with the advancements that I've seen having it. And I love that you said, because I use the FORD acronym, FORD, because if I go to a networking event and I'm pressing flesh, like my biggest compliment I can get is when I walk away from somebody, they go, "What the hell does that guy do?" For me, that's because what I do is I build one-on-ones a lot and see where I can help if I search for that help, because I use Ford, for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And once I can, if I'm having a conversation with you at an event and I walk away, immediately write you a thank you card, drop it in the mail, there's a standout effect, but I've also learned enough. Now, this goes right back into your Chat GPT thing in Chaz, right? If you're talking to Chaz and you use the Ford kind of the family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, kind of like that kind of aspect to anything, you'll start getting like pretty cool answers and results. That's what I've noticed. I'm saying it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that I'm starting to see. Some people are afraid of it. Me, I'm just like, dude, it's like my own personal assistant, confidant. It's like in catching him when he's wrong sometimes is actually a lot of fun. There's a human aspect to
it
that.
is.
It's
It's
fun.
like, yeah, no, that was not what the answer I was looking for. Come on,
Right,
fix it.
exactly. And sometimes I drop, sometimes he has to say, don't use that language. And he does. I'm like, dude, you're a sailor, man. Deal with it. He's like, okay. He actually like deals with it. But as we tie this together, Laura, so if people want out there and they're having an epiphany right now saying, man, I need to apply these principles of compassionate leadership. Give me an example or two examples of what they can do immediately to start taking more action and start leading more with empathy and effectiveness.
So I think if you haven't done so already, sit with each one of your team members. If you do not have a team, sit with yourself and ask the hard questions. Who am I? What am I trying to accomplish? Where do I want to be in 10 years from now? How am I serving other people with the right intentions? And what are those intentions? Right? Really having a deep understanding of knowing yourself and then knowing the people that work for you, asking the same questions of them.
I
So
love
that's
that.
that's number one. Really
Okay.
have a deep understanding of yourself and your team.
Gotcha.
And that may take some time,
Absolutely.
right? It
Yeah.
may take some time to flesh that out, but it's also encouraging to your team for you to ask those questions
Yes.
because it shows that you care,
Care. There you go.
right?
Yeah. And
And
again,
then the other piece, number two would be setting those like basically ground rules, right? What am what are my expectations? Here's what I want my team to be able to come to me with. Here's my open door policy. Set those policies in place so that if you're struggling and your team's failing and it's like, wait, do I not have an open door policy? Did they not feel like they could come to me? Why did they feel like they couldn't come to me? Did they come to me and I didn't listen?
Right. Right.
Right. And
I
then if they come to me and we can't resolve it, what's my next step?
love it. So basically, squad, she's telling us to, if you're a leader, sit with the leader or sit with your team, right? And make sure the intentions are in place. And then also the ground rules, which I would probably recommend, I'm sure my friend Laura would also, is set the ground rules early in any relationship of what exactly an open door policy is. Again, open door is not drama. Open door is not, oh, well, this person said this. No, that's a different HR kind of thing. This is about something that's critical to mission, period. Like if it's critical to mission, and also that means it's probably critical to your job too, as
Yep.
well. And they have the leaders need to have that open door policy for them to be able to come through the door. So let's dig into which I'm going to do a 3 book giveaway squad out here, either a Kindle or a paperback. And Lord, tell me a little bit about which we kind of dove into it, but tell me a little bit about the book here, of like kind of like your feelings at the end now that it's been published and it's getting rolling out there, and like some of the feedback that you're getting. Obviously, I'm raving about it, but what are you getting from the
Yeah.
book?
I think the biggest thing that people are excited about is the 25 principles with the
Hmm.
action steps that can be applied. And it's just, they're looking at it as a handbook for, for leaders,
Right,
not just leaders that are already in a leadership role, but new leaders. That's
right.
one of the biggest things. When you have people who are either being promoted into a leadership role or are
Mm,
being hired into a leadership role, are looking at it as a handbook.
right,
And what do we want? What do we want from our leadership team?
right.
They're looking at it from the ability to, that's one of the things, that's why I wrote the 25 principles the way that I did, is so that
Loved it.
people who are in a leadership role, they can actually work through that with their teams.
Yes, yes. That
Because
is exactly what we're doing with it. Because I'm like, hey, this is LT's book, and like I want you to kind of go through, and each one of you to pick a principle, and we've went through it since I think it was since January, I think that we've been doing it, and I wanted to kind of surprise you with that, and I'm going to actually have my team kind of send you emails about what we've been working through with it, right? So it's legit,
uh,
squad. It works. It's all there. I mean, like, this woman comes from a place of intention, not attention. She's not like, look at me, no matter how stunningly beautiful she is. But like, seriously, she is out there really changing cultures for the better. And that's, we need people like you, Laura. So please don't ever, 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 ever stop. And with that being said, I'm going to do a 3 book giveaway for the first 3 people that put transparent. Like just put transparent. I'll know you've listened if you put transparent. If you want to text it to us at 561-440-3830, or you want to drop it in Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever you see this. And I promise I'll have Laura's name right within the within the cover shot. So, but Lord, if you could, the drill here, but leave us with one last knowledge nugget that we can take with us, internalize, and take action on.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to being compassionate as a leader is to make sure that you are compassionate towards yourself as well.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's one of the things when we look and internalize the things and that we want to see in
Right.
others and we see it in ourselves, that's where it begins.
Love it.
That's
And
where the
that,
change happens.
oh my gosh, the magic happens right there. And squad, we just got done with another fun conversation, enlightening conversation by my good friend Laura, who's was challenged to step into leadership roles and like really started to thrive. But she saw the pigeonholes that people were kind of going through, right? And how they feel that, hey man, if I don't do this right, I might not, or if I get stuck here, I do a good job, they're going to keep me here without it all comes back to communication. Very intentional with your worth. A lot of people, like Laura said, do not like kind of feel as if they're worthy enough. But remember, every part of that wheel is value. Know your value. Also know that it's appropriate to give yourself grace and space, but also know the difference between a mistake made once or an excuse. Because winners, we make adjustments. Mediocre people are losers. They make excuses. That's what they do. And just be out there and own it, but give yourself grace and space. If you want to see an example of that, go on my YouTube and watch me freeze on stage and have somebody on the side of the stage say grace and space and brought me right back into my speech, which it was something that I had to own the moment. And also, let's get rid of the fiefdoms. Protect information that can really kind of sink a ship. Like be open and communicative. If you have different divisions, find a way for them to work together and communicate without stepping on each other's toes, right? And she also like wants you to be human, like balance your humanness with what you are at work. Get granular with your questions when working with artificial intelligence or AI or her Chaz or my Philo. We are granular with the questions. We build relationships with. I love AI. I just absolutely love it. There's so much power in it, and I know there will be power for you. And if you're a leader, sit with your team members, find out their intentions, put the ground rules, no drama ground rules. Everything's got to be mission oriented on the ground rules. But if something is amiss with the mission, they need to be able to come talk to you about it and ask them to put in a really quick agenda or just a bullet point what you're going to go through, how much time you're going to need. And leaders have that open door, have that conversation with. That's what Laura really pressed forward on. And lastly, again, well, my good friend, she's planting trees. She continues to plant trees she's never going to sit in the shade of. And that's why I love aligning with her as part of my tribe, my squad that she brought up in this interview as well. And lastly, make sure you are compassionate towards yourself. You're going to make mistakes. The best of us do. Every one of us do. But own them. And if you need help, get your asking gear, like my good friend Leah Woodford taught me, and ask for the help. And then just take immediate, like Tony Robbins say, massive action. So, Laura, thank you so much for coming on again. You earned your third Varsity Squad letter here at Time to Shine today. I'll always love your guts, and thank you so much. And I can't wait for your next book drop.
Thank you so much for having me on here, Fergie. I really appreciate hanging out with you. Time to Shine today is an amazing podcast. I love listening to it, and I am grateful. Have a great day.
Chat soon, love. Bye. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine today, proudly brought to you by Inlet Properties and Investments. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on the Time to Shine Today podcast, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you'd like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also, there you will see our recommended resources. We hope you will help support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have been listening to, it'd be great if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's your time to shine.